there. This is Major Gregory H. Arabian. I am honorably discharged from the United States Air Force with the rank of Major. I am the present oral history director of Post 41 AMVET's oral history program. And I have with me today AMVET George Haroutunian, and he with me are members of the Corporal Paul S. Marsubian AMVET's Post 41 in Watertown, Massachusetts. The date today is November 20. Is that right? 20. November 20, 2003. And we're about to take an oral history of George. And as a preface, I'd like to remind whoever looks at this tape, of course we don't know whether your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or coming generations will see the tape. But at the present time, and this is the year 2003, at the present time there are 19 million veterans of World War II in the United States. But every day we lose, every day we lose 1,500 veterans. Correct. Old age, I suppose, because the average age of a World War II veteran is somewhere between 70 and 80 years. And that's the age of veterans who enlisted in the service at age 17 or 18 years old. Motivated by a desire to honor our nation's war veterans for their service and to collect their stories and experiences while they're still among us, the United States Congress passed Public Law 106-380, and it was signed by President Clinton on October 27, 2000. And it calls upon the American Folklife Center of the Library of Congress to collect and preserve audio and videotaped oral histories, along with documentary materials such as letters, diaries, maps, photographs. And we have a lot of those to show you today because George has brought some stuff with us, pictures, photographs, and so forth, memorabilia, just to give us the flavor of what it was to serve in the United States Armed Forces. So we're going to start this oral history, and we're going to take that. I'm going to zoom in on George. I'm going to get out of the picture, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions, George, and then we'll go in and we'll go through some of this memorabilia just to give future generations. This tape is intended to give future generations some of the information and perhaps some of the inspiration of serving with the United States Armed Forces. And we always preface this by saying that freedom is not free. Freedom requires sacrifice, sacrifice of time, effort, lives, and careers. People who went into the service sacrificed possibly a good-paying career as a professional or whatever it might have been to serve our country. And that is the price we pay for freedom. People just don't give you freedom. You have to take it, fight it, nurture it, fight for it, and sacrifice for it. So we're going to start the oral history at this time, and let's see where we go from here.
Thank you, Major.
All right. Okay, George, let's start with asking you where were you born and brought up?
Well, I was born in Chelsea, Massachusetts. And that's
Your mother and father's name?
My mother's name was Rose or Vartui, the Armenian name. My father was John Hovanes. And of course, both of them have been deceased for some time now.
And where'd they come from?
They came from Maytap, Turkey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. And they came over and resided in Chelsea, and that's where you were born?
Well, it wasn't that quick, but they did. They came over in the boat, but my father was, my mother was here first. My mother was here first. My father came over met her in New York. Off they went to Middleborough, made a home in Middleborough, and from that point to Chelsea, where I was born.
Okay. Did they escape the genocide?
Yes, they did.
And did they come here fleeing from the genocide?
That is correct.
Okay, so they were aware of the fact that there was a Turkish genocide of the Armenians in
Yes.
1915.
My mother was an orphan.
She was?
Yes.
As was mine.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were born and brought up in the Chelsea school system
Yes, I was.
and graduated from Chelsea High School?
That is correct.
Okay. And while you were in school, you had a hobby, didn't you?
I sure did.
And that hobby was what?
Well, I joined a club that was sponsored by Jordan Marsh in those days, the old
Yeah.
Jordan Marsh in Boston, and it was the Junior Aviation League, as they call it. And I was introduced to this club, and as a result of it, I became very, very active, to the point where I won numerous awards, money, merchandise, trophies.
Really?
I came in second place in the national championships.
So you were interested in aviation?
Very, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've given us a picture here
Yeah,
of what appears to be of what you were right back then. And we'll put this in there and show you at age what? What was this?
I was 17 years old. I
17
think
years old. You were interested in aviation in those days?
I sure was.
You didn't take up any pilot training, did you?
No, I didn't, but I went to New England Aircraft School part-time, and I got a lot of experience there on
And
mechanics.
this is you. Tell us what that is. I've just shown that on the film.
Well, the picture depicts all the trophies that I won over, believe it or not, a 3-year period as a young man. And one of the trophies that I had in my hand was a scale model of the Constellation, but that was a trophy in itself that I won 3 years consecutive as a New England champion after going through all the events. So that
So
trophy...
we have another picture of you here with that Constellation.
That is correct, and that was the day that they had a banquet, and the trophies were given out, and those were some of the trophies I won, along with the New England Championship trophy, which I retained as a result of being champion 3 years consecutive.
And this was something run by Jordan Marsh.
Well, the Jordan Marsh was the club that sponsored
right.
the club, yeah,
So you had an interest in aviation from an early age.
very early.
Okay. Now, when did you graduate from Chelsea High?
That was 1947.
47.
1947.
Okay. And that was just 6 years after Pearl Harbor.
That's correct.
Wasn't it? Do you recall where you were at Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I remember I was home.
You were.
I remember it well.
What did you think about it?
It scared the hell out of me.
It did.
It scared the hell out of me.
Yeah. Did it get you mad?
It got me angry. My brother was in the service then,
Uh-huh.
and of course I thought of him constantly.
You have brothers and sisters?
I had 2 other brothers.
Yeah.
My oldest brother died when he was 47 years old, and unfortunately, as it happened, I lost my middle brother, you might call him, when he was only 9 years old. And I want to apologize for my voice.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize, just do your best. Now, was your brother who died at age 47, was he in the service?
Yes, he was.
And where did he serve?
He was in the 13th Air Force, and as strange as it may seem, but he was in the service with Sam Zaranjan in the
Oh, really?
13th Air Force.
Yeah,
And-
Sam was in the 23rd, was it 23rd Air Force? Called the Jungle Squadron? He
The
was.
Jungle Squadron, yeah.
Yeah, he was in the Pacific.
Yeah.
I see, okay. So you came along much later?
Call it that.
Call it that, okay.
My brother was 5 years older than myself, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, tell us, how soon was it after you graduated from Chelsea High that you entered the service?
It was not until I was at least 21 years of age. I went in late.
Uh-huh.
I enlisted for the Army Airborne.
You enlisted?
I enlisted, yes, I did.
Why did you enlist?
Why did I enlist? Well, I would say this, that before I came to grips on what I did, I was hoping that I was going to go into the Air Force
No.
and hopefully to get an education as far as aeronautics, something to do with aeronautics. And as it turned out, I was at the Army base, and they told me that there were no more enlistments. Enlistments had closed for the Air Force. And I happened to see a few friends of mine from Revere who said they were going Army Airborne.
Uh-huh.
And I said, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
But that's where I ended up, because for my love of airplanes, I said, I guess the next thing I'm going to do is jump out of the foolish thing.
Okay.
So that's where I went.
All right. And you went into the airborne because you couldn't go into the actually piloting or
That is correct.
piloting the
So,
aircraft. Okay.
call it the next best thing, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. What, do you remember, how did you, where'd you go? How'd you enlist?
Well, I enlisted in Malden. It was at the Malden, in Malden Square,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. And they drove us out to the western part of the state.
Fort Devens?
Devens, yep.
You did your paperwork there?
That's where I got my first taste of KP.
Okay. All right.
And then I went to North Carolina.
How long did you stay at Devens? Just for a short
It
period?
was a very short period of time.
Then you went to North Carolina.
Now, North Carolina to do my
Okay.
basics.
Tell us how you felt when you arrived at your basic training in North Carolina.
Well,
What was it like?
it was a whole different world for me. A whole different world.
How different?
Being with other men, sharing a whole bay and so on, which I was
Yeah.
never accustomed to.
Yeah.
I made friends very, very quickly.
Uh-huh.
And we all, I guess, felt pretty much the same way.
No.
And we learned that this was going to be our life, and
Uh-huh.
to accept it the way it is, and take it from there.
Okay. So you didn't have any attitude problem? You
No,
got along-
I didn't have an attitude problem. It's something that I asked to do, on my own accord.
Okay.
And I was going to make the best of it.
Okay. How did your parents feel about going into the airborne?
Believe it or not, my parents didn't understand the meaning of airborne until my brother got quite upset, and he said, he's not coming back. And my mother looked at my brother, and I'll never forget it. She said, I know he's coming back.
Yeah. Okay.
And here I am, I'm sitting here.
All right. So, this was 50, this was in 55, right?
Well, no, in 51.
51.
I went in the Army in
yeah.
January 51,
Okay,
and I served 3 years.
okay. What was your basic like down there in North Carolina?
It was hell. It was hot and sticky,
Yeah. Uncomfortable.
very, very uncomfortable. I guess if nothing else, that was the one thing that took all the joy out of my basic training.
Okay.
But we did have cadre that were tops. They were 82nd Airborne cadre from the Second World War, and we were told that that was the toughest training given in a 7-year span. And boy, it was tough. It was
What did it consist of besides just marching and learning and things like that?
all kind of firearms and so on. And of course, by that time, I still hadn't had my wings. I still had not gone through airborne training
Yeah.
until June of 51. So they set a pace for us that was so tough that we didn't have to, we had no time to think of jumping out of a plane or anything, or what may come in the future.
This is a physical running and
Very, very
hiking?
strict. Very, very strict.
And what kind of weapons did you use?
Well, of course, the M1 in those days and the bazookas and different things, we had the 105 artillery and different things like
Yeah.
that, you know.
That's the 105 millimeter
Millimeters.
howitzers.
Howitzers, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you learned how to shoot that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we got
And you-
involved, a little bit of all kind of weapons,
Really?
yeah.
And how about any automatic weapons?
BARs.
BARs.
Running automatic, yeah. Yeah.
And you have here, did you learn how to rig your parachutes? You're a parachute rigger.
Well, I finally ended up as a parachute rigger for the most
Right,
part.
right.
I went to quartermaster school after I got out of after I got my wings in the airborne. I was sent off to a quartermaster school in Fort Lee, Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Let's
And-
back up a bit, because I'm sure that whoever looks at this film is going to want to ask this question. What was it like to jump out of an aircraft?
Why did I know you were going to ask me that? Well,
What kind of aircraft did you use, by the way?
well, the early aircraft then were the C-46s. C-46s.
Right.
And then they came out with the C-82 boxcar, and then a more cleaned up version of the C-82, what they call a 119 boxcar, so that the boxcar, of course, took in a lot more equipment, whether it be jeeps and howitzers and so on.
That was a twin boom aircraft.
Twin boom, that is correct.
And the body was in the center of the twin booms.
That is correct.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And of course, we did all kind of deployment using that to drop jeeps, howitzers. In fact, we even tried a bulldozer with 7 100-foot chutes.
Really?
First one worked fine, the second one streamed it all the way down.
Oh, boy. Okay. Tell us about your experience. Tell us about your first jump.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Well, leading up to the first jump, of course, the training is in such a quick pace, from jumping out of 34-foot towers, just stopping short of the ground, maybe about 5 feet, enough to scare the hell out of anybody. Some people would get up there at that height, ready to jump, and they just couldn't do it, and they were, of course, told to go home, in a sense.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But by that time, the aeroplane came around, and we had our parachutes on, and there we were flying to enter our first jump.
Okay.
Well-
How was yours? Did you have to wait, or did they push you out?
No, nobody ever pushed me out.
Nobody pushed you out?
No, never.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't, I couldn't stand that kind of embarrassment. No, actually, when they tell you to stand up, hook up, check your equipment, sound off for equipment okay, shuffle at the door, ready, go, and those are the commands. You'll never forget those.
Really?
You'll never forget them. And any guy that says that he was in the airborne, you want to question him, if he doesn't know those commands, then you can shoot him down.
Okay.
Because he was never airborne.
What
We
was the
took pride.
biggest problem in learning how to be a paratrooper?
When you say problem,
What was the biggest obstacle? Was the fear?
well, fear was always there. Fear was always there, because there is still the unknown. If that parachute doesn't work, of course, you have the reserve parachute.
Right.
Not to say that's going to work all the time. I've seen streamers on both. I've been in mass jumps, and you actually walk right on top of somebody else's chute. Sometimes you're that close, and you have to walk to keep from spilling the air from your own chute, which would collapse your chute. So you're taught all these things, and I've seen some people streamer in, and
How many
it's not a
jumps have
pleasant
you been? How many jumps have you been involved in?
I had 33 total jumps. 33 total jumps.
Okay.
And one of those was in a B-52, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Jody hole in the tail end. It's about 5 feet in diameter. And this was just a special kind of a jump. This was for guerrilla warfare training and so on that we were doing.
B-52 is a jet bomber.
It's a bomber, right.
And you dove out of a jet bomber?
No, this was the recip.
Ah,
This is recip.
Because B-50,
B-17, B-52, B-52. No,
B-52 is the jet bomber. B-17 is the
but it
reason.
had to be the B-17.
B-17.
It had a Jody hole, as
Oh,
they
yeah.
call it. There were
Yeah.
three of us that sat around that foolish hole.
Yeah.
And individually, we went out,
Yeah,
zap.
okay.
That was quite an experience. in itself.
Okay. All right, so you went through your training in North Carolina, basically with, you say it was a very fast and a very tough, hard pace.
It was.
You went
It was.
through the jumps in North Carolina till you got your wings.
Yes, yes.
And how many jumps did it take you to get your wings?
It's 5 jumps.
5 jumps?
5 jumps to get your wings, right.
And you felt pretty proud about that?
I was very proud. I was very proud.
Yeah. Did you write to your parents and tell them you're still alive and so forth?
I always kept in touch with my Pa, and I always wrote an Armenian to my parents.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your first, did you go to any more specialist training after that? After North Carolina?
Well, of course, I went to the quartermaster school, like I said, for parachute packing, aerial delivery, and sewing, and so on.
So you were involved in maintaining the parachutes?
Maintaining the parachutes, packing the parachutes, aerial delivery, and that type of thing.
But were
Yeah.
you jumping at the same
I
time?
was always jumping at the same time.
You were?
Yep, I had to make so many jumps within a specific period of time to stay qualified.
And you also got hazardous duty pay?
I sure did.
And that was an
Didn't amount to
incentive,
hell a
wasn't it?
lot, but
Okay. Any idea what the hazardous duty pay was over and above what you normally got?
$50 a month.
$50 a month?
$50 a month, I remember
Yeah,
that well.
because when you're in pilot training, I think
Yeah.
the flight pay is about 120 a month,
Right.
over and above, your regular.
basic pay,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in the quartermaster division,
Well, for that time being,
Mm-hmm.
then I came back to my outfit.
okay?
My outfit wanted me back, and when I came back, I was stationed at the Fort Benning. I went to Fort Benning, where I packed chutes for those people who are going through training to
training.
become paratroopers.
Okay, all right. How tough is it to learn how to pack a chute? Take some training?
It takes some training, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of work,
And these were the white, round
Well,
parachutes?
camouflage.
They're camouflage
We
now?
had camouflage in those
Okay,
days.
so the
sure.
chutes aren't white anymore, they're camouflage color.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were packing chutes and you were in the quartermaster for a while there at Fort Benning.
Yeah.
When did you get to Fort Benning, roughly?
Well, actually, I should have said that I went to Fort Benning first to get my wings,
Oh, I see.
and then I went to, now you got me.
Okay,
No, I went to North Carolina for my basic training, then I went to Fort Benning to get my wings.
okay. So it was at Benning that you got your wings?
That's where I got my wings.
Okay.
right.
And your outfit was called what?
At that time, I was just stationed with the group that just had to do with that packing of chutes for people going through training.
Okay.
And then I was called upon to join the Psychological Warfare Center back to North Carolina. We opened up a whole new area for new training. This was the Special Forces training.
Uh-huh, okay.
So I was called there as a parachute rigger in fact, 2 other people like myself, and we opened up a shop to accommodate all those troopers that were going through all that training, the Special Forces training.
What
And
was Fort Benning like?
Huge. For one thing, it was huge. And of course, it was an air base, too.
Uh-huh.
It was an air base.
An Air
there,
Force
too.
base?
Air Force base.
Okay.
Sure.
What kind of aircraft they have there?
I can't honestly say, my
Cargo type?
mind was just on C-46s in those days and so on until
Okay.
so.
And then from Benning, where did you go?
Well, from Benning, all of a sudden I found that I got orders to go back to North Carolina to the Psychological Warfare Training Center. This was a whole new thing for every one of us that got there. When we got there, it was about 100, 150 of us. We had no command, no nothing, and for about a week or two, we were just on our own. But they did bring cooks. We were able to have our 3 squares a day.
Yeah.
And finally, when we started getting the officers in there, we finally realized what we were getting into.
Of course, there was no war going on at that time.
No, there was not.
And somebody felt a need to have psychological training. What was the purpose of the psychological training?
Because we were going to be the first front line to Korea to do what was required up in the hills and so on. Our training basically got into mountain training. In fact, we did some drops up in Lenore, North Carolina, which is out in the sticks. I mean, that's where you drank the moonshine.
Oh, really?
And we had what we
Okay.
call a 3-second DZ up there, whereby the plane would come over the drop zone 300 feet. 300 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
And we would get 4 people out in that 3 seconds.
Really?
On a 3-second DZ. And if the chute didn't work, your reserve was not going to do you any good.
Yeah.
And then we had pack mules. And that was part of my job, to rig up pack mules and get their harness made up and so on.
So they were
Did
still
all-
using animals.
Yeah, well, we felt that there may be a need in Korea for pack mules and that kind of thing. And so these were all the things that we got into.
Okay. How about any training with regard to what would happen if you were taken prisoner or brainwashing?
All that was part of the program. All that was part of the program. I went through some of the program. I didn't have to go through all of it because my job was to take care of the parachutes and the like.
And you were taught how to deal with stress and things like that?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened after that?
Actually, Psy War is where I stood for most of the time. And came time for discharge. And my company commander tried to talk me into staying in, give me another stripe, but I said, no, I want to go home and see what it's like to be a civilian again.
What rank had you attained by that time?
I had attained staff sergeant then.
Staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you involved in the training of any young recruits come into the parachute training?
Okay, then I have to back up here again because
Go ahead.
I was at Fort Benning for some time as, not only as a rigger, or, that's what they call us. They call us riggers, packing parachutes and so on. But as I was also a cadre at the training site where we had the 250-foot drops on what we call the arms. These were 250-foot towers. There were at least 3 on the base. And these had 4 arms, as they call them, so that according to wind shift, they would use certain arms. They'd hoist you all the way up, and there was an electromagnetic setup. Your chute would be open. Once they disconnected the magnet, you would drop. And of course, the first little bit of drop there was,
Free fall.
yeah, and you would free fall. And
So you
this
were
was part
involved
of-
in working with this
new
machinery that helped?
Yeah, new recruits and
Yeah.
so on. And yes, I did get involved with that.
Yeah, yeah. And was it familiar? Was that training familiar to you as something that you had already gone through?
That I had already gone through, that is correct.
And I suppose there was no difference in that training than your training. You
Yeah,
helped them. You went-
now you're enjoying, you're having your refreshment now.
Yeah.
Watching other people going through it.
Yeah.
But there was one thing that did happen while I was there on the towers, and we had a responsibility to make sure that, for the safety of all those recruits at that time, of course, and any time. But one guy, apparently the wind shifted and he got caught in the girders.
Uh-huh.
Well, he was up a good 100 feet better. And I, along with another soldier, we went up there and got him down.
Got 'em down.
Got the guy down, yeah. It's kind of a hairy thing. Yeah.
So these were kind of X-shaped beams,
The top, where the tower
Yeah,
is, it's
okay.
shape, yeah.
and you had to decide which way the wind was blowing to find out which end of
And
which beam you're going to drop
That
it
we're going to
from.
drop them from, that's correct.
Okay, the wind was that strong, that high?
Sometimes it would be,
It
yeah.
would. Okay. Now, you say you attained your wings at Benning, is that right?
At Benny.
Now, tell us, if you will, what this picture shows.
Well, this picture
Yeah.
shows when I just got back from, after getting my wings.
Uh-huh.
Came home, and that picture was taken adjacent to the post office in Chelsea.
All right.
And of course, I was a proud son of a gun.
Okay, let's take a look at that.
And I lost 15 pounds
Uh-huh.
during the time I was getting my wings. I was
Okay, here's-
ill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
took ill, and I just didn't want to give up, or else I would have had to go through another class.
So this shows you when you got your wings.
Right.
How old were you?
I would say I was just around 22 by that time.
22 years old.
I went in when I went in the service when I was 21, or I turned 21. I'm either 21 or 22 there.
And
So I was an old man when
where
I-
is this, at Fort Benning?
at Fort Benning, yeah.
This is at Fort Benning.
No. That picture's been taken in Chelsea when I came
Okay.
home on leave.
Yeah, but you were stationed at Fort
I was
Benning.
stationed at Fort Benning at that time.
Okay, very good. And I think we have another shot.
By the way,
Here.
we reactivated the 508 Airborne,
You did.
the outfit that I ended up with.
Okay.
So that was a big ado.
And what about this shot here?
Well, that was taken at what we call the Portel buildings in Fort Benning. All the cadre, like myself, stayed in those buildings, and they were quite large. They almost took up about 3 blocks. And
Now, you refer to the word cadre. What do you mean by cadre?
well, we were trainers. We were trainers
see.
for those who were trying to get their wings also.
Okay, so you were training, and this picture is also at the same place?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so, let me see. It was between Benning and North Carolina, okay? And you went through training, you trained others, and what else did you do?
Well, we did have mass jumps, during that period of time. And as I indicated before, sometimes they would be very hairy, and we did lose a few people who stream it in. And those are the unfortunate things that can happen during training. But there was one time we went out to Texas, and we had an exercise out there. They call it Longhorn. Well, we had 400 and some odd people who got hurt seriously, and at least 2 fatalities in the jump.
Really?
Yeah, we had about 3,000 people jump.
What was the purpose of that training?
That again was training for whatever may take place.
Was it low-level jump, or?
That was 1,000 feet.
What were your normal jumps?
That is a normal jump, 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet?
1,000 feet. That's training jump. That's training jump. As I indicated before, because of War Special Forces, they trained us to jump at lower altitudes, but you get out just a certain amount of men at a time according
Yeah.
to the drop zone area,
As low as 300 feet?
as low as 300 feet. That is
So when you
scary.
did the lower jumps, you didn't carry a reserve chute?
On the lower jump, you still carried the reserve chute.
You did.
It just made you feel good, that's all it was going to do.
No, wasn't going to do it any
No.
good? Okay. So then your first tour of duty ended in 1960? 61?
No,
February 6,
that's my-
1961, it says here.
Okay.
Inactive military service by reason of ETS.
Okay, let's back up a little bit, because
Okay.
we're talking Army, we're talking Air National Guard, we're talking Air
Oh, I
Force.
see. Okay.
So
All right.
I
Okay.
did my 3-year stint with the Army, and I always like to say Army Airborne, because I'm kind of proud of that.
Okay.
And I was discharged in January 1954 from
Okay.
the Army.
All right. So in 54, you were a staff sergeant.
I believe I was a staff sergeant.
Okay. And then, upon separation from the Army, what did you do?
Well, when I came home,
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to take it easy for a while, but I didn't stay, loose all the time.
Yeah.
I found odd jobs, I did odd things, different kind of work, and so on. And I found out that there was an opportunity to get a job with the Air National Guard at what they call the Air Technical Detachment down at Logan Airport
Uh-huh.
in East Boston.
You were still living in Chelsea?
I was still living in Chelsea then.
With your parents?
That is correct.
Mhm.
And I made the inquiry, and I explained to them what my qualifications were as far as the Army was concerned, but now we're talking a whole different matter. This is part of the Air Force. They have a lot to do with flight gear, the pilots with their oxygen masks, their helmets, yes, parachutes, and chaps, as they call them, anti-G suits and such.
Yeah.
And somebody liked me there. Somebody liked me there. They liked what I had to say, and they said, "Well, we're gonna give you a shot. We'll give you the job."
Okay.
And I worked there in '55. I started work there in, I think it was March '55. And to work there, I also had to join the Air National Guard also.
Uh-huh.
That was a
So
stipulation.
you were working at the Air National Guard unit as a civilian,
Call it like a state employee.
a state employee?
Yes,
Okay. But then you also had to join the Air National Guard?
that is correct.
Okay. And what detachment did you join?
It was the 102nd Fighter Interceptor Wing.
Okay. And what kind of aircraft were they equipped with? If you know, was it jet or?
Yes, they had the jets then.
Had the jets?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And of course, they maintain these things unbelievably, we always had the tail end, you might say, of the birds, as we call them. But now the Air National Guard is looked at as one of the prime forces,
Yes.
and they have all the updated equipment, so.
In the past, they were reserves. They were just reserves to
Right.
the active service, but
Right.
now they take the brunt of all of the
They sure
activity. Now, you went through the transition from reciprocating engines with propellers, that is, to jets.
Right, right.
How did you take that, or how did you transition with that kind of change in aircraft?
Well,
What did you think about it?
From the point where I saw as a kid, things happening with airplanes and so on, there wasn't much of a change for me to be around that kind of aircraft. It was different because now I had an opportunity to get into the seat, to sit in the seat, because the survival kit was in that seat. I had to put it in, take it out, and of course, you had to always watch that you didn't sit off the ejection seat and kill yourself
Yeah.
or kill somebody else. So it was a whole new experience for me. It was a
And
whole new experience.
when was this now? This is
It was 1955.
1955. Okay. And these aircraft were mostly P-80s?
They were trainer jets, yeah, yeah.
Straight wing shooting star?
Straight wing, that is correct, yeah.
You ever get into any F-86s?
Oh, I sure have.
You
I
have?
sure have. In fact, I've gone up in the T-Birds, the twin-seaters, and I've got some great rides.
And you still like aircraft?
I will
Still
always
like
love, I was always love airplanes.
Okay. So how long did you stay with the Air National Guard there? And tell us some of your experiences with them. What did you do? Have a monthly meeting, and then
Yeah.
2 weeks in the
Of course,
summer?
we had, it was a different set of circumstances many years ago, where we go in maybe 2 Wednesdays during the course of the month, and then 1 weekend. But they finally made some changes along the way, whereby you could do all the time that you wanted, any time you wanted.
Yeah.
And
And because you were working in a civilian capacity, you could put in extra time there.
yes, I could. Yes, I could.
Yeah.
And during that time, I became shop chief, too.
Uh-huh.
Now the burden was on me to make sure that I was always doing the right thing, and I always did the right thing.
And the responsibility of your shop was,
Well, to take care of all the protective equipment that the pilots wore, not just take care of it, but to maintain it, to make sure it was always functioning properly. And we give egress training to the pilots. We would also take them out into the pond, out on the base, and do water survival training, and that is, picking them up from their little rafts
yeah.
out in the water and so on. We made it very realistic.
okay.
Yeah, there's a lot involved in it.
Now, when you say egress training, what is that?
Ejection seat.
Ejection seat.
Ejection seat
Okay.
training, right.
Describe the ejection seat for us.
Ooh, it weighs a hell of a lot, I'll tell you. There's
Yeah.
so much involved in it.
Okay.
The thing that I was, or the area that I was concerned with was the kit, or the survival kit that went in that seat and became part of the whole seat where the pilot would sit on. And of course, that survival equipment that was in there had just about anything you could think of, between dried foods, the salted water, radios, and the like, all kind of things. And of course, there was a raft in there too.
So you had communications.
There's communication.
You had food. You had survival, and you had
Right.
rafts.
Right.
Built right into the seat.
Right into the seat.
Okay.
And of course, the more newer aircraft now have the parachute fit right into the seat itself.
Okay.
So that the pilot doesn't even have to carry his chute out to the aircraft. All he has to do is just take the
Take the straps.
harness and hook it up, and that's it.
So in the old ejection seats, he would be ejected out of the aircraft, but he'd have his parachute with him?
Oh, yes, yes.
And didn't the survival equipment on the cushion of the seat get separated from him?
Okay. The whole secret of ejection is that once the pilot clears the aircraft with the seat will fall away. What it will do, the weight of the seat will activate the chute. There's a timer in the chute. And that timer has a barometer, an altimeter, I'm sorry. It has an altimeter that was preset at 14,000 feet. Now, that we know for a fact that if you went cross-country, that there are mountains higher than 14,000 feet. So, but that was a mean altitude that the altimeter was set in the chute. And actually, the pilot would just have to wait out that time until he got to that altitude, assuming that he was a higher altitude.
Right.
And the chute would open up. Once the chute opened up, then his survival kit would open up. Everything would work automatically.
And everything would fall together.
And in fact, today, there were so many different new items in the market. Even if somebody goes in the water, they don't even have to pull their Mae West.
Ah, yes.
It will blow up automatically.
So it's automatic inflation.
Yeah, in case the pilot was
What-
knocked out,
Oh, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. So
So there's
it has
many new
become quite a
advances.
sophisticated
Without a
art
doubt,
to
without a
it.
doubt.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you find your relationship with the people in the Air Guard?
I tell you, we were a family.
Yeah.
We were family. And even today, I get together with some of my friends at Givelli's in East Boston.
Uh-huh.
And I'm talking about the old Corps.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about General Sweeney, who we call Nagasaki Charlie, because he was the pilot who dropped the bomb on Nagasaki.
Uh-huh.
And we have some aces in our organization. And on occasion, once a month, we get together. We have at least anywhere from 25 to 35 people still show to have a dinner. And we talk old stories, but one by one, we're starting to leave too.
Are they members of any veterans organizations?
Good question,
That you
I'm
know
not
of?
totally sure.
Maybe we can get them to join the MVets Post 41. Okay. Now, so you stayed with the Air National Guard, both in a civilian and a military
That
capacity?
is correct, that is
Okay.
correct, Major. Yeah.
What is the most modern aircraft you ever flew in while you were with the Air National Guard?
Well, I believe it was the F-16.
F-16?
F-16.
You flew in the F-16?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a two-seater.
Was there ejection seat similar to what you've described here?
Yes, yes.
So you've been up as far as the F-16?
Yep.
Okay. Now, while you were part of the Air National Guard, I think you said that you were activated during the Berlin airlift.
That is correct.
When was that?
That was in 1961.
Tell us something about that. How did you get activated? What did you do? And what were your duties?
This was a total new experience for just about all the people in the Guard at that time.
Yeah.
And Major, within 30 days,
Yeah.
we were off and running. And really, that was not good enough.
30 days?
Not in today's world. You have to be ready much sooner than that. But there was a lot to be learned as a result of that. But we made the deployment without any mishap. We went through up through Iceland, through the tundra, and so on. My job, prior to finding my way through that course of going to, actually, we went to Falsbourg, as we call it in France. I went along the same route that our fighter jets went.
Uh-huh.
And I would be there before them so that I could maintain their equipment all the way up through Iceland and so on. So we
Really?
made a number of stops along the way.
Yeah.
But prior to the deployment, we had to outfit each and every pilot with anti-exposure suits and put all these things together and so on. It was a lot of work.
Because the way they went to Europe was the Great Circle route, and the Great Circle route took you over parts of Canada, Greenland,
It sure
Iceland.
did. It sure
And then you
did.
went over to Europe that way.
Yep, we sure
Okay.
did, yeah.
Now, where did you deploy from?
Right from Logan Airport.
From Logan.
Logan Airport, yeah.
And you went over to Salzburg?
We went to Falsbourg, that was our base.
Falsburg.
Falsbourg, yeah. We opened the base up again. That was an air base back in the Second World War, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And we opened the base, and
What was that like? Was that a little bit of a job?
boy, it was like coming into nothing.
Really?
It needed a lot of work.
Okay.
And it was cold and damp and so on. And
Whereabouts is Falsburg?
If you know where Saarburg? Saarburg?
Saarburg?
Saarburg.
No.
It's in the Alsace area.
Oh, yeah, Alsace-Lorraine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alsace-Lorraine area.
And it's not a hell of a lot of distance from there to Berlin, is it?
No, not too far.
Yeah.
Not too far. I made my trip there.
And what kind of aircraft did you use there?
But we had the what the hell did we have now?
I know they have the C-54s bringing the cargo in.
Yeah, we had the big heavy guys come in and bring all the equipment in.
Yeah. Were you
That's-
involved in the movement of cargo, or were you involved in the defensive?
No, my
field?
job primarily as protective equipment supervisor was to get my guys, everybody involved, to get the pilots all outfitted, get all the survival kits, their parachutes, everything in the
These are for
bird.
the fighter pilots?
For the fighter pilots, that's
Okay,
right.
you weren't involved in the moving of cargo or anything?
No,
like
no, no, that was not my
Okay.
so-called MOS or
that?
whatever.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So, what kind of aircraft did they use, the fighters use in those days? The F-16?
I
No,
believe
not
at
the
that time they
F-16,
were.
I think it
No,
was
no.
F-86 maybe.
F-86s were more like it in
Yeah.
those days, yeah.
So Fallsburg turned into a jet fighter base?
That's what it was. That's what it turned into.
Okay, so that's what you did. And you were involved in any possible retaliatory action that the Russians would have taken?
Unfortunately, it didn't happen,
Yeah,
when we were very fortunate,
because you were prepared.
because we were
Yeah.
prepared.
How did you feel about this whole Berlin airlift situation? Of course,
Well-
we had President Truman at that time, didn't we? Was he the president? Yeah, it was right after.
61, I think he was.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Berlin airlift.
Yep.
And
Yep.
did you think we were doing the right thing?
I felt that we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, Major, I went in with the knowledge that I was going to put this uniform on, keep this uniform on, and it's been part of my life. It's
Yeah.
been a big part of my life, the uniform.
Yeah. So you had no question as to duties or
No,
anything else? You
no.
did what you had to do because you were told to do it?
That
And
is
you
correct.
knew
That
what
is
to do?
correct. That is correct.
Okay. So how long were you in Fallsburg?
We stayed just under a year, just about 10, a little over 10 months. A little over 10 months.
Was there any contact with civilians around there?
Yes, we had contact with civilians. In fact, many of us had an opportunity to do a little traveling, and I know I did. And we were welcomed by the general populace there.
Germans?
No, the French,
French?
but they spoke German also, as you know, because of Alsace. area.
Alsace-Lorraine is right
Yeah,
on the lip.
yeah. And there was a different dialect that they spoke.
Yeah, yeah.
But we brought people there who were educated.
Yeah.
We brought good people. We brought good people there that were, there to do a job. And we were invited to their homes, we were invited to their restaurants, of course.
And these were the French that
The
appreciated
French, right, yeah, yeah.
much to our chagrin these days.
I
the
know
French
it,
don't
I
appreciate
know
us
it,
too much.
I know it.
Okay. Okay, so you stayed in Fallsburg for about a year. Now, did the Berlin airlift, did they lift the Berlin airlift at the end of that period of time, do you know? I know it was in effect for a long period
It
of
was
time.
a long period of time. I don't think they did lift the,
I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
Now,
No.
did Fallsburg close?
Fallsburg, from all accounts, is closed.
No, did it close when you left?
When we left, yes.
You closed
But
it?
not actually when I left, because I went back on an advance group.
And that would have been
So-
in 1961? 61.
Actually, 62.
62.
62,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
62.
And tell us, up to this time, did you take any jumps?
No, my jumping days were over once I got out of the service.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, when you were in Fallsburg, were you there as part of the National Guard?
Now I was in the Air Force.
In other words, they activated you.
I was activated, now I was part of the Air Force.
Air Force. And as part of the Air Force, you went to Fallsburg and served for a year with the fighter pilots there.
That is correct.
And then you returned home?
Then I returned home,
Okay.
back to my regular job.
Okay.
Still-
What happened then?
Well, I stayed on until they moved the Air Guard to Otis Air Force Base.
Ah, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
And when that happened, I decided that, no, I want to stay home. I want to stay up this area here with my parents. And by that time, I just had my mother.
Okay, and you were still in Chelsea?
I was still in Chelsea then.
Okay. And that was in the 60s?
Yes.
Okay. Your father had passed on since?
My father passed on.
All right.
In fact, he passed on just after I came home from my
Fallsburg?
stint with Fallsburg, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just about 6 months after.
And how did they take all this? How did they, when you were activated, they knew you were going overseas again? What did they seem to think about all this?
You know, my mom and dad were proud citizens, always
Yeah.
proud citizens. They were proud that their son was always doing something
Yeah.
that had to do something with the government, and they never looked down on,
And didn't they ask you, why are you doing this when you could be doing something else, or?
well, I know that my mother and my dad both would have liked me to become an aeronautical engineer and a lot of nice things like that, too. But that never happened. Maybe the good Lord had another design for me.
Okay.
And I'm not unhappy with what has happened to me in my life.
All right. Now, did you ever take advantage of any part of the GI Bill that you had coming?
I did, yes, I did. I did take evening courses and so on. But
In which field?
believe it or not, it was just random courses in architecture and different things like that. Yeah,
So you did take some benefit of?
Yes.
From the?
yeah, but not enough to say that, but I must back up again a little bit, because I did go to school for law enforcement. I got my law enforcement degree. And,
Where's that?
That was out of, I'm trying to think now, the.
University
school
of Massachusetts?
No. The school is up in Beverly. Oh, God.
Was it state police training?
All of a sudden, I did I'm doing one of these.
That's all right. That's okay. But you got a degree in law
I
enforcement?
got a degree in law enforcement, yeah. yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Have you ever served as a police officer?
Yes, I have.
And describe briefly what your career was with that. At the same time, you're at the Air National Guard, you're a police officer too, right?
Well, let me say this, that when I got out of the Air National Guard in 85, 1985.
85?
1985, yeah. And it was around 1968 when the Guard moved to Otis Air Force Base
Okay.
that I was confronted, asked if I would consider coming into the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Uh-huh.
So I gave it enough thought, and I said, well, okay, I'm going to take the exam. I went to school. There were classes to prep me for the
For the registry
test.
exam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did well enough so that I found myself in uniform, in a registry uniform.
Uh-huh.
And after, I guess, about 25 years, I retired.
Okay.
And
Now-
did a little bit of everything.
Okay. Now, you got out of the, you retired out of the Guard in 85, did you say?
In 85,
In 85.
yeah.
Now, other than your experience in basic training, supply, quartermaster corps, and the Berlin Airlift, were there any other significant glitches in your service that you'd like to cover? What did you do, for instance, between 1965 and 1987 in the Air Guard? Just continual training and maintenance?
Yes, when I finally decided I would no longer be part of that air technical detachment, I kept up with the regular Guard drills, as we call them, and then, of course, the summer camps that we went to down at Otis.
Right.
And so that time served was part of active duty.
Right.
And it did help me on, as you would know, for quarters and so on.
Yes, for
Social Security.
retirement points and
Sure,
things like that.
retirement points.
But it
right.
also
Right.
kept your local unit
Yeah.
In shape
That
and ready
is
to go.
correct.
Were they ever called to active duty between 65 and 85 when you left?
No.
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 But they were all prepared?
That was the one time that I get called, and,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay. And you had no hesitation on serving with the Armed Forces Berlin Airlift?
No hesitation at all.
No hesitation.
No hesitation at all.
Did you ever go into Berlin?
Yes, I did.
What was it like?
I went into East Berlin.
You did?
I did go into East Berlin. I went in there with a few buddies of mine. It was a bus tour, and
This wasn't
it was
during the
like-
Berlin airlift?
This was during that, no, not actually during the Berlin airlift.
Right.
No. But it was kind of a scary situation, you know. We went through Checkpoint Charlie and so on.
Were you in uniform?
No, we were not even in uniform. We had our ID cards with us.
Okay.
But we stayed on the bus. We stayed on the bus with tourists.
So you went into Berlin
Yeah.
as a civilian, in civilian garb,
In civilian garb with our ID.
and when was that?
There couldn't have been much after about 4 or 5 months when I got stationed in Fallsburg
Really?
Yeah.
In the 60s?
in the 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite interesting.
What did you see? Tell us what you saw.
I tell you what, a lot of rubble.
Really?
It was like nobody was in the streets. It was just, it was like a ghost town.
Really?
There was a lot of rubble there when I was there.
And is
yeah.
that in contrast to West
In
Germany?
contrast to West Germany, like night and day.
Really?
Like night and day. And of course, the wall was there.
So they hadn't really built up East Germany, had they?
No, not at that time. No,
Yeah.
not at that time.
And you say it was ghost town, there weren't people walking around?
I don't think I'd even want to walk around there.
Really?
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah. There were only a few cars, few people walking around. It, you know, maybe I just saw certain parts of East Berlin, but from what I saw, where I was,
How long was this tour?
it was just probably about 3 hours.
3 hours?
I would say it was a good 3
And he
hours,
drove you
from
all
what I
around?
remember now.
Yeah. And did you have an English-speaking
Yes,
tour guide?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you did have your reservations about coming back, about going through there. It was dangerous, okay.
It was nice to get back into West Berlin, I'll tell you.
Yes, yes, yes. Nice to be back home.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me see. Let's go through a few pictures here, if you will. This looks like a duplicate. Why don't you hang on to that, and I'll show
One
this in
guy
the
is
camera.
smiling, the other guy.
One guy's smiling, the other guy isn't smiling. Okay. Who is this?
That's yours truly, George Haroutunian.
All right. And
When he was a young stud.
you are a master sergeant. You're
Yes, I
wearing
was a
master
ma-
sergeant stripes there.
That's correct.
And you're in the U.S. Air Force as opposed
Yeah.
to the Army Air Corps.
That's right.
And what's that insignia on the right chest?
The one on the
Looks
right
like a
chest,
bird.
that is the old insignia that goes back with the Mass Air National Guard, the Seagull.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That is something that once in a while you'll see on some of these automobiles in the back window,
Oh, yeah.
far.
Okay.
You don't see them too often.
All right. But they recognize you as part of the...
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is when you were with the
That's
Air
when I was
National
with the Air
Guard.
Guard, right. Yeah,
And I assume that would be in the 60s.
that was, this could have been in the 60s or 70s, thereabouts anyways.
All right. There's another picture I want to show you, and we'll put that on the camera later. What is that?
No, you don't need that.
Huh?
That I just brought along for you to look at.
Okay.
That's George Kavarian in there.
Uh-huh.
George Kavarian, his brother Jack.
Uh-huh. This
That's
is
when he was
during the
skinny.
service.
No.
Okay.
No, I just thought I'd bring that
All
up.
right.
I just happened to,
And
Thought you got a kick
we
out.
what's that there?
well, believe it or not, that's when I was getting discharged from the
Really?
Army Airborne. Yeah.
All right.
I came home, I got my car. I said, I'm going to pack up my car, and
You were discharged from the Army Airborne when?
that was January '54.
And it looks like you have a 54 Buick back there, huh? Did you buy a new car?
That's basically what it was then, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You were hell-bent on buying a new car. So you bought a car, and you parked that in Chelsea?
Well, no, that was home. My brother had the car,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
I said, I'm going to take it back, and I'll come back. I came back on probably the worst snowstorm they ever had
Really?
down the south. But
Okay.
that son of a gun plowed right through, and
Mhm.
I came home okay with no
All
problem.
right. Did you ever have any problems with the local populace wherever you were, whether it was in the United States or in Europe?
No, I don't believe so.
Were there ever any types of protests against you or Yankee go home or anything like that?
No, I never ran into those kind of things.
Never did?
No.
Okay. Now, one of the big problems we had in World War II is that we're short of supplies everywhere. Did you ever have any problems with supply shortages of anything? Like food, fuel, uniforms?
Major, I don't see that was a problem, honestly.
So you had
Yeah.
plenty of supplies?
I would have to say yes.
Okay, you had your share of stress during your active duty. And what about entertainment? What did you do for entertainment?
Stateside, other side?
Let's start, you went to Devon's, you went to Benning. What did you do for entertainment at
Well,
Benning?
you know, Benning, outside of Benning was Columbus, Georgia, and it was a nice wide open town.
Right.
And if you went in there with uniform or civilian clothes, even with civilian clothes, people would know that you were in the service because you look like a skinhead, you know,
Right.
You're always very
Right.
clean looking and so on.
Right.
But we never had any problem
problem.
going into any of the bars or having a drink, and the gals were very, very nice. The Southern Belles were lovely,
right.
lovely gals. Yeah.
And North Carolina, same?
North Carolina, pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
You know, and with me, I've always enjoyed dancing, and I always had a way of meeting the ladies because of the dance.
Very good. All right. So, and in Germany, when you went to France, I'm sorry, you had interaction with the civilians there.
Yes, we did.
And they
Yes, we
appreciated
did.
you then.
And they did appreciate us there.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. You know, our troops never really got into any serious problems with anybody. I don't remember any kind of fights with the local populace or anything like that. And we were always gentlemanly with the people there,
Okay.
and they liked us for that.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Oh, yeah.
What was it like?
Well, when you say the service ended, when I came back from Fallsburg,
How did you know that your days of active service were ended with the paratroopers?
oh, with the paratroopers, well, I knew the day that I was going to be discharged.
Okay.
I knew that.
What happened
Yeah.
on that day?
Of course, you know, the old, I guess, went through all the paperwork
Yeah.
and so on. But my company commander tried to keep me on. He didn't want me to go.
Uh-huh.
And he said, look, he said, I'll get you another stripe, more pay and so on. I said, no, look, I've got to go home and get a taste of
Civilian
civilian.
life.
And I said, if I feel I want to come back, I'll come back. But it didn't happen, but as you know, I went and put a uniform on again with the guides.
That's right. And at that time, you were a staff sergeant.
Yeah, I was a staff
And
sergeant.
he would have made you a tech sergeant, and you were already a master sergeant when you got through anyway.
Well, whatever.
Okay, all right. Now, tell us, how did you get to join Post 41, the AMBETS? How'd you get from Chelsea to Watertown?
Well, Watertown has always been familiar to me.
Right?
And there are many people in the post that I have known through, whether it be Watertown Church or Holy Trinity and St. Stephen's.
Uh-huh.
And so the people here are not new to me.
Uh-huh. Who was the
But-
commander when you first joined?
You know, I thought it was Elliot. I thought it was Elliot Venetia.
When did you join?
I'm a very short time here. I think it's only been about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really? So,
Now, maybe I'm wrong, but time goes by so
you're
fast.
you're a recent recruit.
I would have to consider myself a recent recruit.
I
sure.
see, yeah. Then Elliot would have been.
Yeah, but I honestly don't recall who said, you know, well, it's about time, you know,
Right,
to
right.
come and join with us. And I don't know who it was.
You don't know who it was that sponsored you?
No, I really don't.
But you've enjoyed your camaraderie
I
here?
sure have.
Yeah.
I sure have,
Okay,
you know.
all right. What do you think of veterans organizations?
Well, this is the only veterans organization that I've been really involved with. I'm a disabled vet. I never got involved with a post with the disabled vet,
Yeah.
although I do have a post that I could go to, but I feel at home here.
Uh-huh.
And this is like another home for me. I mean,
Did your disability stem from your service?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. And so far as your association here at Post 41, is it both a patriotic feeling as well as a fraternal feeling that you have?
It's a comrade.
Comradely
type
thing.
of Comradey thing, yeah. And
Okay.
a lot of, just about my whole life has been nurtured in that respect.
Okay. Well, it seems like you've made a good transition from really active service in the paratroopers to the Air National Guard to the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and here you are back in the Air National
I
Guard.
guess I can't get out of a uniform.
Okay.
Help me.
Well, that's okay. That's a good thing. Now, let's go through some of these things that you have here. Of course, this is the favorite place where everybody goes, isn't it, huh?
Where is that?
Take a look at that.
Yeah, that's the base exchange, sure. That's the base exchange. I met my sweetheart there.
Is that
was-
Milden Hall?
That was in Fallsburg. That was at our base.
This is Milden Hall. Is that the name of the base?
That was the name of that hall there. I guess it was the base exchange.
Milden Hall, Base Exchange.
Right.
Who is who there? Where are you, on the extreme right
That's me on the right.
with the cap?
Yep.
Okay. And this is the
And-
Base
And
Exchange.
some of the other guys that were in the Alpha with me. that were
Okay,
in
and this is during the airlift?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
What are these other guys doing?
I don't know, we're just
Were they part of your group?
part of our group. Yeah, yeah. We were
Okay.
just going inside or coming out or whatever we're doing.
Did you find many bargains at the Base Exchange?
Not really.
Not really?
Not really, but I met my female friend in there.
You did?
Yes, I sure did.
Oh, how did you meet her?
Well, she was working in there, she had her eyes set on me,
Uh-huh.
and we made eye contact, and
And that was it?
that was it.
Okay.
But I came home without her.
You did?
I did.
And she followed you, or you
Oh.
followed her?
That's an old story, but
Okay.
there were tears.
Now, here's another clip. Tell us about that.
Oh. Well, this has to do with when I was down at Logan.
Uh-huh.
Every so often, we'd get an orientation flight to some person, and in that case, it was talk show host Benzaquin.
It says here, orientation flight, Tech Sergeant George Haroutunian.
that
So you
time, I
had
was
your
a tech-
extra stripe, huh?
Yeah.
Of Chelsea, and Sergeant Joseph
Joseph Zaytunjan.
Zaytunjan
Yeah,
of Watertown checked Paul Benzaquin's oxygen mask prior to his taking an orientation flight in a T-33.
Correct.
On the day he became an honorary member of the 102nd Tactical Fighter Group.
right.
So that was your, and you were on the left.
Yeah,
Okay, and Paul Benzaquin was on the right. Paul Benzaquin was a commentator, right?
that is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. I don't know where he is these days.
I don't know if he's alive yet.
I don't even know if he's alive.
Yeah.
But we did some of these kind of things. We had people come in and fit them up with flight gear and then take them for a ride.
Okay.
And so on.
All right. And I have
Good-
another
good
one.
PR.
And I have another one here. This is a closer shot. It says, noted Boston talk show commentator Paul Benzaquin,
Oh, yeah.
first member of the 102nd Tactical Fighter Group VIP flight, show here suiting up for a bombing with Bob Foe flight.
Bob Foe, sure. He was one of our colonels.
Yeah. Assisting Benzaquin is Tech Sergeant George Haroutunian, personal equipment technician assigned to the 101st Tactical Fighter Squadron. Benzaquin was given a weapons orientation flight in a T-33 aircraft over the Warren Grove Air to Ground Gunnery Range in New Jersey. by 101st Tactical Fighter Squadron pilot Captain Robert Foe.
Right.
And you're suiting him up. So this was
Right.
this was your work that you did.
That's my work, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we used to do a lot of sewing and,
Yeah. Would have been better if Paul had got a shave there.
yeah.
Okay. And tell us something about this. Here's a clipping, August 20, 1962. I'm going to just show this here. It says, "Airmen saluted as tour ends." Tell us something about that. Is that the end of your first tour of duty?
Oh, yeah, this has to do with when we came back after 11 months of active duty. And we had a parade in Boston, and the ceremonies went by the State House. And that is myself carrying the guidon behind the company commander in this picture.
You carried the guidon possibly because you were tall.
Tall, and
Yeah.
I would have to think that because people knew that my prior time with the
With paratroopers.
paratroopers and so on.
Did you always wear your paratrooper wings no matter what uniform you wore?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's part of my award.
It says here, now the Massachusetts Airmen of the 102nd Tactical Fighter Wing Parade before ceremonies at the State House, at which they were reverted from the Air Force to the Air National Guard status after 11 months of active duty.
Right.
This
Right.
is at Milden Hall.
Yes.
Is that right? This is dated August 20,
Yeah.
1962. It's called Minuteman of the 60s.
Right.
Okay. So we have an idea as to what you did in the service, what you went through. Medals. Do you
They're all-
recall any medals that you got?
They're all listed there.
You had Purple Heart?
No.
Purple Heart?
No. I had the parachute badge, and I believe you have the
Sharpshooter?
documents.
Let me see.
You know, one of the things I don't think they did in the Army with us was give us medals for sharpshooting. We were considered all sharpshooters.
Okay. That came with the,
That came with it.
yeah.
If you weren't a sharpshooter, you were out.
Okay.
But this was Air Reserve Forces Meritorious Service Ribbon with 5 oak leaf clusters. Air Force Longevity Service Medal Ribbon with 6 oak leaf clusters. National Defense Service Medal. Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. Armed Forces Reserve Medal. And Massachusetts Service Medal for 25 years. And of course, with that is the parachute badge too. And that's the one I'm proud of.
Okay. Now, you brought in an awful lot of other things here. The Extension Course Institute, where
yeah.
at Gunther Air Force Base in Alabama. You recall
Yeah,
the
which-
leadership training there.
Yeah, I went through a number of courses for protective equipment work and
And on July 23, 1982, you received a certificate from the United States Air Force, and you're a master sergeant by then.
yeah,
Supervisor orientation.
Right.
Is that right?
right.
Okay, we have so many certificates here. Extension courses and everything else. Quartermaster School.
Yeah, that was the one at Fort Lee, Virginia, where I went through the,
That's September 8th, 1951.
yeah.
You went to Fort Lee and you went to Quartermaster School there.
Yeah.
That was after your
That was
paratroop.
after I got my wing.
After you got your wings.
Right.
Okay. And Fort Benning, Georgia, I suppose this is the
That's
one you're
the
proudest
guy.
of.
That's the one.
Right. And at the infantry school at Fort Benning,
Right.
Private George W. Haroutunian
That's it, baby.
successfully completed the basic airborne course at Fort Benning. This was on June 2, 1951, as a qualified parachutist. Okay. That's what you're proud of. Of course, you're proud of all of
I'm
this
proud
stuff.
of all of it.
Right,
I'm proud
right.
of all of it. And I'm proud of all the guys I've served with.
Well, you've had a long and distinguished career, and I hope that I've covered everything. If I haven't, tell me.
No, it's
there anything
it's more than enough.
In your military
More than
service
enough.
that you'd like to comment on?
Well, let me say this. Major. And the question was asked before, when I did one of these kind of things with the Air National Guard, I was called upon to
Yeah.
sit down and answer some questions. And how did I feel about the military? And would I ask somebody else to join the military? Well, I've always felt that the military, donning the uniform, being with the comrades that I've been with over the years, the experiences that I've had, it made me a better person. To know the feelings, the dislikes, and there's so many different facets of growing up that this whole part of what we have been looking at here and what you have been doing with every one of the people with their oral histories is all part of our lives, growing up and being good citizens. And when I hear people shying away from the service, I keep feeling that they're missing something in their lives.
Yes, they are.
Maybe
They are.
I'm wrong.
They
Maybe
are.
I'm wrong.
They are.
I feel everybody should have a stint in the service.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll learn how to make a bed, if nothing else.
Maybe they'll learn something. Okay, so if that's it, we'll proceed to close,
Yeah.
and
I wish I didn't have this nasal.
that's all right. What I'd like to say is that with all of these papers and all of these certificates and diplomas, they are testimony to a very full life. A life of somebody who's gone through parachute training, through quartermaster training, continued to serve his country in the Massachusetts National Guard, and then activated into the Air Force, worked on the Berlin Airlift at the Mildenhall, returned, and continued to serve his country. You did a beautiful job with regard to melding together your civilian and your military life. And it's testimony to your value to this country and the sacrifices you've made to protect the freedoms we all cherish. I'm going to end this tape right here. Believe me,
May I
it's been...
just say one
Yes,
more
go right
thing?
ahead.
You know, with all this, I think it's this kind of thing that has brought me to where I am today. When I say that, my own personal life, since I've been away from the military, has been a very rewarding life for me, because I've been, as you probably know, very much involved with my church.
Yes.
And I was distinguished as receiving the St. Nercession